Hey there, and welcome to the Dynamics Hot Dish Podcast, serving up stories and knowledge on Dynamics 365 and the Power Platform. This is what's hot in Dynamics. You're now joining your hosts, Ashley Steiner and Merlin Schweik. That would have been good. Maybe we could talk about my terrible back. I don't know.
Can't fix old age.
I know. It's not like I'm doing myself any favors with, a desk job where I sit in a chair all day and don't really use the best posture in that chair all day either. And so then then I've got lots of,
Right?
I do. And I stand sometimes. It's like, I gotta remember to do it though. I feel like it works well for podcasting because then I remember to use my standing up voice, your presenting voice. But I don't know, I kind of forget about it. Sitting in the chair is easy and it's comfy, and you're standing, your legs get tired eventually, and then you're like, oh, my legs are tired, I gotta sit down. So I don't know.
Do you want ideas or do you just want to complain? Because I can give you ideas.
I mean, I'll take the ideas. As we were just saying, I don't know if you can help somebody change who doesn't want to change, but I'll hear what the ideas are.
That's why I asked, right? Do you just, because I always have this policy of when people's complaining, do you want help or do you just want me to listen? Because sometimes people just want to complain and they don't want a solution, right? And so I communicate that to people. I just want to complain about this and then I'll feel better. I don't want to solve it. Don't give me a solution. So that's why I'm asking. Do you want a solution or do you just want to talk about it? I
mean, I feel like I probably know the sorts of things that I ought to do, but maybe I don't. I mean, you were just telling me that for my pulled muscle, I should not be using the tennis ball on it right away, and instead I should be applying heat to it. Well, I should have applied ice to it. It's too late for that. Mm-hmm. I guess I should do heat now and then worry about the tennis ball later and rest.
So don't pick up your kid again until it's feeling better.
Well, I don't think I could.
Or use your legs.
Over in pain. Yeah. No, yeah. I couldn't lean over to put stuff into the dishwasher. I had to crouch down. So.
Oh my gosh, that's terrible. Yeah. So so rice. So I'll repeat what we said off camera: rest, ice, compression, and elevate is what you do for any injury. But there's a point where ice is no longer helpful. So then you switch to heat. And it's 20 minutes on, 20 minutes off. It's not just heat all the time. Same with ice. 20 minutes on, 20 minutes off. And then don't stretch or do any sort of don't try to do yoga, until it stops hurting, because that's not going to help. You're just going to make it worse. So my idea is set a timer to remind you to use your stand-up desk. Set a reminder, put it on your calendar, or mark certain meetings in a color, these meetings I'm going to take standing up. And then again, you have to hold yourself accountable. That's another. See, these are ideas you hadn't thought of, are they?
They are definitely not ideas that I had thought of. This is reminding me of our long ago time management episode where I was just oh yeah, I can manage my time. These are actually all good ideas. And this is similarly it's a good idea.
So these are all things that I'm trying to do. I just moved. I think you can tell I'm in a super weird setup. I'm in an Airbnb and I've found myself just sitting in the Airbnb because I feel uncomfortable in this new space. So I'm starting to force myself to go for a walk. I'm right by the downtown in this town in Texas that I'm in. And why would I not go walk downtown?
Sure.
Things like that. So maybe we can encourage each other.
It's probably a good idea, although it's cold and snowy out for me. So
yeah, it's 50 degrees here. Everyone has their heat on. I'm sweating. I'm definitely a fish out of water here in Texas.
Well, you'll adapt and you'll get soft and weak in the cold weather too, and then you'll come, back up to the north in the middle of winter and be like, God, it's freezing up here. And be like, it's not.
It's supposed to snow here tomorrow. I will say that. And yeah, well, that's what they say. They say I was here last year, 2 years ago, when it was sleeting. They called it sleet. And I was like, yeah, it's just cold and that's rain. I don't really know if that's what y'all call sleet, but all right. So we'll see what happens. I'll let you know. The South is funny. I find these people really they're wearing puffer jackets and it's 60 degrees. And I was like, I should have worn a t-shirt. Yeah, they're funny. But they probably think we're hilarious too, right? With our accents and, polar bear plunges.
Yes. Well, I mean, objectively, that is insane. So.
Yeah, but we all know someone who's done it.
Oh, 100%.
Great.
Not me. It's not for me.
No. Nope. We're talking today about customer service.
Customer service today.
I haven't touched customer service in 4 years, so I'm definitely not the person you want talking about. Well, I shouldn't say that. I'm doing a session in Dynamics Con Live about customer service, so I guess I shouldn't start off with that.
You just got a lot of learning to do before that.
I do. Educate me.
Which is fine. And I'm similarly to your talk on project operations. I'm going to preface this with, I am by no means an expert, and the vast majority of my customer service experience and expertise is, what is it? It's 2023 now, so it's probably about 7 years old. Fortunately, most of the bones are the same.
That's what I was just going to ask, is how much has it really changed in concept?
From a conceptual standpoint, it hasn't changed much. So what I would say is, what I'm finding is all of the stuff that I used to know is all still there, and all still basically works the same way. You still have cases and entitlements and SLAs and all that stuff. After they kind of rehabbed customer service in 2016, I think was when they overhauled it.
Somewhere around there.
About Parature. All that stuff is still basically the same. They've just also added more stuff on top of it and more stuff on top of it. So now it's got more cooler stuff. So for all of our legacy friend listeners, if you've encountered the Unified Service Desk, formerly known as USD, which before that was something else, that was your agent desktop, actual thick client, installs on the machine, handles multiple screens, handles multiple sessions, and integrates legacy apps and all that stuff. Microsoft is doing everything they can to try to phase out the need for that and put everything on the web. And so that's where you get into customer service workspace. Customer service workspace is the multi-session, you can open multiple windows and multiple tabs and have your presence all kind of integrated together, and all this other stuff that all sits on the web, so you don't need anything on your desktop. Now, I don't know this for sure, but I'm going to go ahead and assume that Customer Service Workspace is not a one-to-one parity replacement for Unified Service Desk, especially if you've got old legacy apps that you're trying to integrate with, or if you want to handle different pops on different screens, which was a use case that I remember seeing years ago. So it's not that full-featured, but it is pretty cool.
That was going to be my first question, is because you said it was all web-based. What if you have a legacy ERP or some other system that's homegrown, it has to sit on your desktop? It sounds like this would not be a solution for that.
I don't think it would be a solution if you need to pop a screen for the user in that app.
Okay.
Which is something that you can do with USD, or at least you could years ago, which is I could actually build a pop where it would pop that legacy ERP system, and then you could like basically like macro or script in like key presses to do searches to like get the user to like where they need to be in that legacy app. So like open up the old Unix system and then like data enter these points and press these keys to bring me to the customer screen in that system for the user. Like, this is pretty cool stuff.
That is cool.
But
especially if you think about somebody in customer service who like accesses all the systems, right? That's pretty cool. I've never actually seen lots of demos, right? I've never seen like it in practice, I would say. We explored it at a company in, ironically, 2015. We were exploring USD as a potential solution, and I didn't even know if it was still around, to be honest.
I don't see much about it. So I like, as I say, I feel like Microsoft is sort of like, they're trying to move into the web-based direction. As far as I'm aware, they haven't like turned off USD or like disabled it or anything. So I think I assume you could still use it. But it's also a lot of work to implement. Like you're not just going to turn on USD for like $100,000 in a project. Like start yourself at like 750 and move up from there. Like you're looking at a multi-million-dollar sort of project to implement something with USD. But when you get to the end, like I've seen it in practice. There was a healthcare insurance company. This was a number of years ago that had implemented it and had like, they were like popping one thing on one agent screen and different things on the other agent screen and integrating with multiple like old legacy systems, like member management systems and all sorts of stuff. And like it was doing cool stuff, but it took them like 3 years to build it. So pros and cons. Yeah,
that's great. Because you obviously would have to be a customer of some size, right? Like you couldn't, like if you just had like 10 people in a customer service center, this is totally not for that. You're talking about thousands potentially of agents.
Right. Okay. I think as more organizations move to cloud-based systems, the need for something like that, to pull up your like legacy Unix on-prem system or your like green screen member management system, like after you've replaced those and gone with something that's vaguely web-based, then you don't need that anymore. Now you can move into something like customer service workspace or, Omnichannel, and just do things with API calls and surface data that you need to surface that way. And it's a lot faster to stand up workspace.
Well, obviously, I mean, if it's web-based, anything web-based is.
Yeah, it is. I guess similar to project operations, there's obviously a bunch of like data that you have to set up to like make everything work. But at least what I found so far, and I'm only, again, just like scratching the surface on some of the capabilities here, but like I set up my little environment with customer service workspace, and then I turned on the Omnichannel app, and then I went into like the administration side, and it was like, oh, would you like to like try the voice demo? You just click a button, and then it like deploys all this stuff for you so that you can like try the voice demo, and then it gave me a phone number, and so I can call the phone number, and then it'll answer, and then it does a screen pop for you, and it's got call controls, and it's all built in. Like I built none of this. And so it's got call controls at the top, and then below that, it's like giving me a transcript of who's saying what. So like I say something into my phone and it transcribes it, and then I say something as the agent and it transcribes it. I'm like, that's cool.
Wow.
But the fact that you can just like click a button and get a demo of it is really sweet.
Wow.
The next thing that I started working on, I haven't finished this one yet, but you can also then, again, using like the voice to text and text to voice kind of stuff, you can configure a Power Virtual Agent's chatbot to function as your IVR. So I started down this process.
Whoa.
Do you know what an IVR is?
No, I do. I'm shocked.
Okay.
IVRs are terrible. I remember at one of the companies I worked at, again, the same company in 2015, we had to set up a new IVR, and I sat next to the project manager for it, and it was such a painful project. So I'm just imagining, I'm excited to hear about this because I remember the screams and cuss words that came out of that cubicle.
I believe it, and I'm not sure. Like I said, I'm still setting it up, so I'm not sure like how good it is actually. But like the transcription stuff that I was doing seemed to be keeping up with the conversation pretty well. So I'm extending from that. That if I call into my virtual agent chatbot and like tell it some stuff, that it'll follow the path on the chatbot that it needs to follow. And then if I'm like, talk to an agent, then it'll move me to the escalation path and then automatically pop the phone call into my Omnichannel app and then just like ring the phone.
So that's like, oh, what are you looking for? Say it in a few words. Like, so it's using something like that rather than press 1 for blah, 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 press 2 for, so it lets people use natural language to kind of find what they're looking for.
Right.
That's cool.
I assume I could build in, you know, like the press 1 to get this sort of stuff. Yes. And also if you spend that much time on the phone with like one of those free text IVR systems, without a little bit of guidance, you're like, I don't actually, like, what do you want from me? What do you want me to say? And it's like, I'd like to ask more about your sales department. And it's like, are you asking about customer service? No, I'm not. That's not what I said at all. Oh, please try again. It's like,
that's when you just say agent.
Right.
Agent.
You do an agent.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's awesome. That's pretty cool though, that they're figuring out ways to integrate PVA, because I'm guessing PVA is a huge part of customer service, right? Just as a whole, because you can put that on your website. You can even like internally, you could have that available for an agent to use to find answers or whatever. So
I think my impression, and this is only my impression from like my personal perspective and experience, is that PVA is sort of like, it's one of those technologies. It's like cool in concept, but I don't know that many companies are really using it for anything yet.
Oh, okay.
Like, at least in my experience, I feel like most organizations are at like one of the first 2 levels of like CRM software sorts of projects, right? It's either like, I have nothing and I need something, or I have something and it doesn't quite do what I want it to do or give me what I want it to do. And so I'm trying to modernize it, right? And I feel like you need to advance beyond those 2 steps before something like a bot is actually going to help you, right? Like if I'm not tracking cases anywhere, or they're in a spreadsheet or whatever, or I'm tracking cases, but I'm not doing it very well and I can't get any metrics out of it, like you don't have much of a foundation to move into like, oh, I'm going to offload some stuff with like a bot on the website that's going to answer questions. But I think it's really exciting because if you've got the rest of the foundation there, then you can have a virtual agent, and even if it's not your IVR, right? Like maybe you've already got your IVR system that you spent hundreds of hours cursing at to set up, 10 years ago, and you're not going to change that until you absolutely have to, and that's totally fine. Like having a bot that your agents can ask questions of, or having a bot that you can put publicly on your website to help deflect the load from your agents, like all of that is super value add. And it's probably even worth the licensing cost of Power Virtual Agent, which is not exactly cheap, but it's cheaper than a person.
I was going to say, is it per license, or is it like just here's the cost per month?
I think it's per.
And if you don't know the answer, that's okay. Like, you said it was cheaper than a person.
Per bot, or if it's per like number of interactions in a month. It might be licensed by interactions.
Probably both.
Could be both.
Like here's the base, and then it's like a portal. Like here's the base for to set up the portal, and then here's how many times you can log into it per month.
Right. And I think it's something similar. And the base price is like relatively expensive. It's like, I don't know, like $1,500 or something a month.
Oh, okay.
Which I think has kind of scared off a lot of companies. But like average, put that over your year term and think about hiring somebody at that amount of money to just like answer all these like basic questions over and over and over and over again, like the bot's going to do a better job, and you're not going to have to like hire that person for what sounds like an absolutely nightmare of a job. Like spend your resources on people like answering questions that the machine can't just answer quickly.
I think that also goes back to like the audience for this, because like marketing, for example, I know we're not talking about marketing, but that's $1,500 a month. And for a lot of people, they're like, well, that's expensive and it doesn't, well, you know what I mean? And I'm like, well, but the audience of this is an enterprise company. You know, we're not talking about, you know, your small business, you know, you have a clothing store downtown or something and there's 5 employees to like market, send emails to your customers. Like that's not the target audience of marketing. So I think that also plays into it. And whether that hurts or helps Microsoft, I don't know, because they don't have like a small to medium business option, but they also have great partners that have some similar tools that can do something. But to your point, I think that people forget that people want to have value at work, and having them do something so mundane and stupid. I think that it would be better to hire that person or to like reallocate somebody's time to learn how to figure out how to set up like that bot and feed it the knowledge and information in order. And then they can go do something else and they can just manage it. Like, I feel like, at least I guess I can only speak to our generation. Like I could see that people would much rather have the value rather than, because I think that there are people who would, oh, let me just answer questions in a chat box all day, and that's totally fine. But I think that these future generations are getting away from that and wanting to find that they're contributing some sort of value to work, and they're not going to want to do that kind of work anymore. So I think that this is a perfect way to kind of bridge that gap of, okay, somebody's going to have to learn how to set it up, but you're not going to have to do it every day, you know, once it's up and running.
Once it's running, then like it answers the annoying questions for you. And when it runs into something it doesn't know the answer to, then it kicks it to you, you know,
Mm-hmm.
or, you know, one of your coworkers to say, I don't know, I reached the end of my logic. Like, I don't know how to answer this question.
Yeah.
And then you get to do like this one I actually have to like do something for.
Can I get us totally off track and tell you what that makes me think of?
Of course.
Okay. Have you ever seen the movie Hidden Figures? It's about the what they called calculators in NASA before computers. It totally makes me think of that, like how they literally had people sitting in a room doing all the calculations, and then they started to bring in IBM computers and that whole department of calculators, and I'm putting that in a quote because that's what they called them. You know, the manager, supervisor, was like, we got to figure out how to run this thing because this is eventually going to do our job for us. And so that's what it makes me think of, because this isn't like new where technology is coming in and replacing positions, but it's not that it's not replacing positions. It's just changing the position. It's, you know, because that computer still couldn't run on its own. Somebody had to tell it what to do. Anyways, totally off track. Great movie if you've never seen it.
It is a great movie.
Mm-hmm.
I would agree. No, I feel like chatbots, Power Virtual Agent is like, it's that sort of technology. And I realize now we're talking about customer service generally, and we've gone on this whole rabbit hole about Power Virtual Agents.
Which is okay. I mean, we might find a part of this, you know, anyways.
I mean, if anybody wants to know more about virtual agents, you know, come to DynamicsCon Live. I'm going to build one live in the room. We're just going to see what happens. So anything could happen. It'll be very exciting.
I'm going to sit in the back and like feed it some information.
By all means, do what you got to do. But back to like customer service generally. And like omnichannel stuff, customer service workspace. So having, and this I feel like is another sort of like pseudo game changer, is having the ability to do separate sessions on a web browser for service. And the value there, right, is let's say that as a service agent, I am supposed to monitor phone calls and emails and escalated chats from the website. I can only do one phone call at a time, probably, because I have to like speak to that person. Email is a good like, you know, gap filler. Like nothing's come in recently, so I'll monitor the email box. And then you've got your chat conversations, and maybe I can manage, like, I don't know, 3, 4, or 5 of those. Like, I'm thinking back to way back into the before time, with AOL Instant Messenger, and I'd be like, I could run 4 of those maybe at once, like active conversations, and beyond 4, I kind of reached my limit. That was also my younger brain. So
I was gonna say, I made an AOL Instant Messenger reference last week too, so I don't know what it must be in the air. Anyway, that's awesome.
Must be in the air. So like you can be working on different channels at different rates, but all at the same time. And you got to be able to keep all that stuff straight, right? Like in this chat window, I'm talking with Ashley, and we're talking about her kitchen faucet that's leaking. And in this other window, I'm talking with Merlin, and he's having an issue with the valve in the toilet. We're working for a plumbing company.
I caught on to that.
I figured you'd catch on. And then, like, I'm on the phone with somebody who wants to, like, place an order for, I don't know, a whole bunch of gaskets or something. And so, like, trying to keep tabs on, okay, the Ashley conversation is about this. The Merlin conversation is about this. The phone conversation is about this. If you don't have a multi-session window, like, how are you going to do that? Just start popping open extra tabs and then be like, wait, this chat goes with where, which goes with what, and then I got to have the chat somewhere, and then I got to have the case somewhere, and I got to have it's too much, right?
Mm-hmm.
Customer service workspace puts it all together, nice little box, all in my one screen. I can have the different tabs for all the different interactions that I'm doing. And when I click on Ashley's tab, then I see the chat with Ashley, the product that I've already looked up, her contact record, her case record, all that stuff is all like in my session. And then if I click to the Merlin session, now it's all different. I'm looking at the Merlin chat and the Merlin product and the Merlin case and the Merlin contact. And it's easy for me to just like toggle back and forth. I'm like, Ashley, go find your model number. And then I switch over to Merlin and be like, okay, Merlin, you need to do this, and then get back to me. And then meanwhile, like come off of hold on the phone and be like, all right, thanks. Like, which product did you want? And I keep all that stuff separate.
I'm guessing there's also some sort of way to limit that, right? Like, oh, I have 4 chats, so I can't get an incoming call, or I can't, you know what I mean? So I think that's really important too, right? Is being able to turn people's statuses or whatever they call it on and off. But it's still all right there. I don't know. I think that's really cool. I've never worked in customer service, but I've worked with customer service departments, and that's probably one of the biggest frustrations is like, why was this tab open? What was I doing, and what customer was that for, or what ticket was it related to? And so that's pretty cool. It brings it all together.
And that's where like the whole idea behind Omnichannel, like to your point, comes together, because for each channel, I can then specify like how many active things through this channel can an agent have at once, and then keep tabs on the presence or the status between the channels. So like if I'm on the phone, don't give me any new chats. Don't give me any new emails. Like keep all that stuff on hold. But as soon as I hang up, if there's no other call to assign to me, then like start throwing chats at me, and I can have up to 4 or 6 or however many chats, and then cap it off until I close one. I can't get another one. And you want the system to keep track of that for you, so that, to your point, you don't have like an agent that's just like being inundated with stuff, being like, I can't handle all this.
Well, and not only that, then it provides a terrible customer service experience for your customers, right? Like the last thing you want to do is, because here's the thing, if you're calling into customer service, things are already not going right. Like, I'm sorry, if you're reaching out, something's already gone wrong. And the last thing you want to do is make that experience worse, which I think a lot of companies are figuring out, right? They're putting that experience above, dollars and things like that. And I think that something like this could really help.
Yeah, I agree. I don't know, having all the channels together, I think is key. Having the multi-sessions, I think is key. And, figure out where your chatbot should fit in, because I feel like they're really cool and more people should use them.
Does it integrate with social? Is there any sort of social interaction where you can see if people are tweeting about you?
There is. I have not looked into the social channels, so I'm not entirely certain how that works. Like, I don't know if it gives you all of the things that like social listening used to give you. Everybody
Right.
misses social listening.
We do, because we miss it on the marketing side too.
I know.
Because I have to tell you, as a consumer of a lot of different types of products, when I am unhappy, the first thing I do is go to Twitter to complain about it, or to ask if somebody else, like, hey, have you had this issue? How did you handle it? Because one, everybody, but that's what Twitter's for, right? Everybody's on Twitter. Somebody's going to see it. You don't have to be friends with somebody for somebody else to see it. And you're more likely going to actually reach the company. Like, I went on Twitter last year to complain about Ticketmaster. Shocker, right? No, StubHub. It wasn't Ticketmaster, it was StubHub. Same family of products. And within minutes, well, because I had called them, nothing happened. So then I tweeted, and within minutes, somebody messaged and was like, oh, what's your case number? Like, let me help you. And it was resolved, like, almost immediately. And I think that there are people who prefer to I would much rather go on Twitter and just say it, because even somebody else might have an answer, right? It's not just going to the company. So the fact that if Microsoft doesn't have that, and maybe that'll be something we follow up with, because the fact that Microsoft has kind of put social to the side in a lot of their tools, I think is a miss. But
yeah, as I said, I saw a spot. There's a spot in there for social stuff.
Yeah.
I just have not looked into it yet.
Well, we should do a follow-up.
Probably should. Maybe there's an answer. Maybe there's an answer there.
So we're getting close to time. I know we talked about the workspace quite a bit. Is there anything else? I think we can also do a follow-up on some of this.
Yeah, I mean, we could do a follow-up on it. I feel like other than workspace and omnichannel, like I said, a lot of the foundational customer service stuff is still basically the same as it has been for the last, 6-7 years, because it does what it needs to do, right? Like, you manage cases and you send out updates to your customers on those cases, and maybe the way that you do that's a little bit different now, but otherwise the functionality is all basically the same.
Yeah. Cool.
So yeah.
A lot for me to go look at for my Dynamics Con Live session.
Yeah, there you go.
Still think we should switch our sessions.
I don't know. I think it'll be fun for me to sit in the back of that one and heckle.
Oh, man. All right. All right. Well, thanks, everyone, for tuning in, and hope to see you at Dynamics Con Live.
Sure do. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you for listening to the Dynamics Hot Dish podcast. For additional content and previous episodes, check out our website at dynamicshotdish.com, follow us on Twitter at DynamicsHotDish, and subscribe to our podcast for notifications. Thanks. See you next time.